What we announced last Monday in the south of France are several products for the EU stock tokens, which give exposure to public listed equities. We have over 200, and those are available 24/5, finally giving our European customers exposure to US stocks. And then we did a giveaway of what we call private stock tokens of OpenAI and SpaceX. And those aren't tradable yet, but it's sort of testing the waters, if you will, for what we believe is a huge opportunity to resolve one of the biggest iniquities in capital markets, which is the fact that you have these massive companies that are staying private longer. In many cases, they're in frontier industries like AI, where we believe that could change everything, but retail investors can't get exposure. So we're working to solve this.
So the regulator in Lithuania, which you're regulated by, I mean, he looks at the offering and he calls you and asks you what?
Yeah, I think they have some questions. You know, they want to make sure that everything is proper because it's a new innovative offering, and we're confident. We think that these are not only important, but they'll withstand the highest form of scrutiny. You know, when Robinhood does anything, particularly if it's new, I think we expect that it's going to be looked over. So we do believe that it's important and will ultimately withstand the scrutiny. So we welcome the discussions with the regulators, as always.
Were they worried about risk or the way it was packaged? And have you been able to assuage, or is this just, I mean, when are you expecting to launch some of these tokens?
Yeah, so at first they were in the form of a giveaway. Okay. So we gave away around $1 million worth of OpenAI tokens, 500,000 worth of SpaceX. And the idea would be to eventually allow for them to be traded by customers and also to greatly expand the realm of tokens that we offer. We'd like to have thousands of private companies on the platform accessible to retail. And actually, since our announcement, I've had a deluge of inquiries, private companies that actually want to access retail, to have their shares tokenized, to be a part of this revolution. So I think that it's going to be a thing. Of course, it's always difficult to be first, but I think this is so important that we're very motivated to find a great way that satisfies everyone.
And Vlad, did you speak to any other regulators prior to developing these or launching the stock tokens for private companies?
Well, so they're live in the European Union, not live in the UK or the US yet, although we're very keen to find a way to give retail exposure to private companies here. And of course, we have ongoing discussions with all of our regulators as part of the course of running a regulated business.
And confident that they'll be happy with it. I mean, it'd be wildly exciting, right, if it were, for example, launched in the UK. What kind of things are they asking you to do to make sure that it's fine to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure the full extent of their questions. They probably just want to make sure that everything's clear to customers. I think these are new products, and my assumption is they just want to make sure that they are available to customers and it's clear what customers are getting. So in that way, I think we're very aligned because we want those same things. And we do think that the product is clear and is useful.
So, Vlad, how exactly are these tokens, the tokens are structured compared to the underlying assets?
Yeah, so the way tokenization works is we hold the underlying, or it's held by a U.S. broker or other traditional financial business. And then we have a tokenization engine, which basically mints for new tokens when customers acquire them. And if customers want to sell them, we burn the tokens. The mechanism slightly differs depending on the asset, whether it's a public stock or a private company. But the intent is for the tokens to be backed by exposure to the underlying asset in pretty much all cases.
So if it's a private company, how are you valuing it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Without getting into the details of private company valuations, there is a secondary market for private assets, and typically that market is institutional or high net worth in nature. So institutional investors, high net worth, are exchanging private shares or private exposure to companies with one another on a negotiated basis. And so what this would do is it would unlock that. So it's not just the high net worth institutional market, but it unlocks it to retail exposure as well. And the innovation, the difficulty has not just been the sort of like accreditation requirements in the US, but it's also been how to get the liquidity. And I think that's where tokenization comes in, because it solves the liquidity problem by tapping into a global network of hundreds of millions of crypto market participants.
Vlad, on a very basic level, would you categorize these tokens as, tokenized equities or derivatives?
These are derivatives, technically speaking, under EU MiCA and MiFID regulation. So what makes this possible now is clear regulations in the European Union for crypto assets. So it's a bit of a new thing. It's crypto assets, but also a derivative, and
Right.
and those two things are being put together.
I mean, in case of a dispute, inevitably there will be probably some dispute that comes up. I mean, will you intermediate in some capacity on these tokens, or is that one of the things that you're still trying to figure out?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what type of dispute. I think one of the big questions about things that have been tried before in this space is dividend rights, for example. And if you have these instruments, customers in the past have been denied the dividends. But we've actually managed to figure out how to give customers exposure to that. So we want to give all the benefits of the crypto technology and of holding the underlying assets with as few compromises as possible. And I think Robinhood is rarely sort of like the first mover in various spaces. We tend to have an approach where we like to make sure others sort of like do it first. And I think in this particular case, we think it's so important that retail has exposure to these companies and these assets that we saw an opportunity to give a robust offering.
And Vlad, I mean, you mentioned launching this in the U.S. as well. Is there a specific regulatory change that you need in order to get this done?
Well, for tokenization in the U.S., we do believe that the SEC has the authority to make it happen without legislation, which is interesting. And you probably saw last week, Chairman Atkins of the SEC gave an interview about tokenization. He called it a great innovation. And we agree with that. We think tokenization is perhaps the biggest innovation to come into capital markets in the past decade. So I think the US shouldn't be far behind. I think the opportunity is too large to ignore, not just for retail, but also institutional. And I think they're keen. They're having tokenization roundtables at the SEC, which we've been a part of. So
how quickly can we expect
hard to predict.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with the US is we already have something that works. We have the traditional financial system. It's maybe not 24/7, which tokenization would allow, but it's 24/5. There's a lot of stakeholders that we have to make sure feel good about the change. I mean, we haven't even fully moved off of mainframe in the US. So I think it could take time, but I'd like to see the door opening for tokenization rather quickly. And I actually think our event should help accelerate that. Now that you see real products that are useful to customers with this fundamental technology, I think there's going to be more and more pressure for,